In this video, we're going to explore what modules are in Ruby. Now, a module is a way to encapsulate a bunch of different code, classes, definitions, constants, that type of thing, and wrapping it up into a particular namespace. So the first concept to understand is what a namespace is, and so I'm going to use a simple kind of contrived example, but I think you'll get the idea what namespace is. So I have two files here named 906A and 906B, and they have just a simple definition of a method. Now what you need to imagine is, say these are huge files, or maybe not huge files, but big files with lots of class definitions and different methods and such declared within them. And you're going to load both of them up because they're needed for a particular project. So where this happens all the time is where 906A is done by one programmer and B is done by another programmer. And by the time you get down to the point of figuring out that they use the same method name inside of it, or some other thing, a class name or something like that, they might have done a lot of code already, and it would be too hard to go back and rip all that out. But if you start with a module right away, you avoid that entire problem, and you could use both of these in the combined project pretty easily. So I launched IRB here, and I'm going to load the 906A file first here. There we go. So that loaded up. So let's try that HF, and it should just simply give me this statement back. You have entered, and then whatever I enter in the parentheses. So I'll just put a number in here. So you've entered that. So we've established that loading that file declares this method and we can use it. Now let's load the B. Now it doesn't give us an error that we've declared that, so let's rerun our HF method and see what happens. Well, there you go. You can see that HF now is actually been redeclared, and we can't get to this one anymore. It's gone. So you've had basically a collision in the namespace, if you want to call it that, and you've wiped out one of these. So we can use modules to get around that. So let's first declare this as module A, just to keep it easy, and declare this one as module B. And I need to include this in there. Now let's go and reload these. Now, we can't use HF, but what we can do is we can say A.HF and B. So I effectively now can access, if you can imagine now, say there's 30 classes and definition of methods and such in here, and I can use all of them now. I can access all of them because they have a separate namespace established by the module here. Now, modules can do something else that's actually even more interesting, and that's called mix-ins. And it's essentially this: if you have a module that declares some methods or something along those lines, and then you include that module in your class definitions, as I've shown here. So I got a module called debug, and I've got two methods inside here. One is called whoami, and all it does is return self, so that's going to be whatever the object is that's been declared here, the class of that object, and then eventually what we're doing is actually the name. So the name of the class of the object. That's the first one. The second one is a little bit more specific in that it prints out this class variable. So again, we got the self, which is the object. We're calling it class because we want that cvar, which is declared as a class variable. Now this could be anything, any kind of class variable. I just use cvar as a name. It doesn't have to be that. And so I declared then two classes here, class 1 and class 2. I kept it really easy. I included this debug module, and I declared this class variable in here with two different values. Again, we could have a potential for namespace collision if these weren't declared just in this way. In other words, if I tried to declare cvar out here for both of them, it isn't going to work. So let's go ahead and load this file now. And I'm going to declare, let's see, let's make A, we'll say 1.new, and B 2.new. So I just instantiated two objects, one each of 1 and 2, the classes 1 and 2. So now, if I type in A, print cvar, I get 10, and if I print B cvar, I get 20. So even though I didn't have a method declared in these classes, because I had it declared in the module, I essentially mixed in these definitions in here. I can also do the who am I, and the question mark you can just think of as another character. It doesn't mean anything special, and it's used a lot in Ruby. So that one tells us, oh, my class is 2, and if we ask it about the object A, that says my class is 1. So that's mixing in with modules.